Welcome to the Microsoft webinar series, Know the Now. Harmony is the platinum sponsor of the SharePoint conference and are pleased to be sponsoring this webinar series. Harmony provides a suite of desktop, web-based and mobile apps that help organizations successfully use SharePoint and Office 365 to intelligently manage emails and documents. Harmony also helps organizations drive Office 365 adoption by making it easy for knowledge workers to discover important emails, documents, and calendar events from a single screen. With Harmony, there's no need to toggle between Outlook, Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, and the calendar looking for information. How does it work? Harmony is a sidebar that runs in Outlook on the desktop, or as an OWA plugin. As a sidebar, Harmony makes it easy for knowledge workers to capture and classify the important emails that they need to be compliant with email management initiatives. By simply dragging and dropping emails and document attachments from Outlook to SharePoint, Harmony automatically captures email headers as metadata. It also prompts the user for required metadata so that the emails are easy to find later on. And now with topics, Harmony also identifies the important emails that need to be saved, and will even suggest where to store the emails within SharePoint. On mobile devices, Harmony is the only solution on the market for capturing emails to SharePoint, which can be done directly from the Microsoft Outlook mobile app. With Harmony Mobile, capturing photos and working offline are easy from a smartphone or a tablet. Harmony has over 1,600 enterprise customers, including Bosch, Swiss Re, Hilton, Citi, Aon, Vinci Energies, Bearing Point, Ernst & Young, and many others. To try Harmony for yourself, please go to our website, harmon.ie, and you can download a free trial of any of the versions of Harmony across the desktop, mobile, and web integrations. Harmony is a Microsoft Gold partner and winner of Microsoft's Best App Award. We're currently working with Microsoft to develop the first app built upon the Microsoft Graph and the new Microsoft Graph Data Connect product. The new Harmony offering provides unique user insights by spotlighting a worker's most important work topics, those that need immediate attention. It even allows the user to drill down to discover related documents, emails, and calendar events. I'd now like to introduce this week's webinar, Employee Engagement Across Your Intelligent Internet, with speakers from Microsoft, Christina Torok and Dan Holm, and Brad McCabe will take questions at the end of the session. It's now my pleasure to introduce Dan Holm, Director of Product Marketing.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dan Holm, and I'm pleased to be joined by Christina and later Brad. And I'd first like to say thank you so much to Richard and the entire team at Harmony for being a platinum sponsor of the SharePoint conference, and also for being one of our valued partners that continues to help empower customers to use and adopt Office 365 more successfully than ever. So thank you very much to Harmony. Today, we're here to talk about employee engagement across your intelligent intranet. Employee engagement and communications is more important than ever for organizations. In this age of digital transformation, if information is flowing faster outside your organization than inside it, you risk disruption. So leaders know it's important to be able to align, to inform, and to drive organization to common purpose and shared objectives. These goals are not just touchy-feely business goals. They have tangible results that hit your bottom line. Recent research suggests that where employees are highly engaged, profits are 21% higher. That's amazing. And those kinds of results hit every other business outcome, including retention, recruiting, and more. Unfortunately, across the globe, engagement is fairly low at about 15%. So leaders know that it's important to up their game with employee engagement and communications. One of my favorite quotes comes from the CEO and the leaders of Rio Tinto, where they use Office 365 to engage across the organization. And this demonstrates that employee engagement touches every organization, from knowledge-centric organizations to mining and extraction organizations across the globe of every size. At Microsoft 365, at Microsoft, we offer Microsoft 365 to power the modern workplace. And in Microsoft 365, we have a suite of tools that come together to power every type of teamwork. In today's event, we're going to be focused on what we call outer loop scenarios, allowing you to connect across teams, to meet people, to create relationships, and to share knowledge across the organization. And we'll be looking at SharePoint, Yammer, and Microsoft Stream, and how those come together to address these scenarios. So let me stop my video and dive right in. Employee engagement and communications is a critical scenario, as we've mentioned, for organizations across the globe, in every industry, and of every size. As we look at employee engagement communications, we see customers working to implement 4 key initiatives that drive significant business value. First is leadership engagement, connecting leaders with employees to inspire, to guide, and to align the organization. Second, employee communications, keeping people up to date on a day-to-day basis with what's going on, what they need to know to be successful. Third, open sharing, learning, and innovation, where people come together across the organization, breaking down silos to share knowledge and learning, to connect with expertise, to ask questions and get answers, to provide feedback and ideas. And lastly, participation and inclusion, making people feel part of the organization, to feel connected with each other, and to feel like they have a voice and a contribution to make to the overall mission of the organization. This last bucket allows organizations to transform culture at scale. We're going to start by looking at leadership engagement. Again, this is about connecting leaders at any level of the organization with their organization to inspire, to guide, and to align. Because in today's fast-moving world, it's critical that there's clarity of vision and shared purpose for people to understand the parameters within which they work, the goals they're trying to hit, so that you can push decision-making to the edges and be more agile as an organization. We use these technologies at Microsoft, in fact, to connect Satya and other leaders in the organization to our employees so that they have been able to transform Microsoft's culture over a very short period of time, engaging 110,000 employees worldwide. We'll take a look at a couple of the use cases that you can enable today to drive engagement between leaders and employees. So let's jump into our demo environment. First, we're going to look at a community where people can come together and engage with leaders, ask them questions, express concerns, get clarity, and suggest ideas. This community is powered by Yammer, and this is something that Yammer has done for organizations around the globe, including Rio Tinto that we mentioned earlier. So this particular Yammer group allows people to come in and share what's on their mind. You can see corporate communicators are sharing videos of recent meetings. We've got the ability for people to ask questions about key topics such as safety. And people can also express themselves with capabilities like GIFs and a single-click translation so that I can express myself in my language and you can read what I've posted in yours. All of these capabilities come together to create a safe, open forum where people can engage with leaders and ask questions on a day-to-day basis. And this capability is one that has allowed Microsoft and other customers to really flatten the organization and connect leaders with employees at scale. And one of the favorite quotes I've heard from a customer about this use of technology to connect leaders with employees is that they don't view this kind of capability as a broadcast channel. They don't view it as a way for executives to talk at employees. They view it as a stethoscope. They view it as a way for executives to listen to what's top of mind, to engage, to understand what is and isn't clear, and to add that clarity where necessary. So to create sustained open engagement across the organization, Yammer groups really help. Now, recently, we introduced a new capability that Christina is going to share.
Thanks, Dan. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump back into the executive corner, what we just saw Dan sharing as well. And as Dan mentioned, we're going to take a look at an event that's held here in this executive corner where our leaders in Contoso are engaging directly with employees. And like Dan said, it's not just a one-to-many, it's really this ongoing interaction that we have with employees communicating with each other, with leadership, all in one place. So a live event is a way to broadcast to the entire organization. And here I'm going to go ahead and if I were to click on this button, it would take me to a scheduling place where I could go ahead and set up my live event. And all my live events that I'm going to host are going to happen right here in Executive Corner. So let's go ahead and jump over to a past event and we'll take a look at what that looks like. So here's an event that I've held the other day. And you'll be able to see that there's an ongoing discussion that's happening alongside this event. And not only does it happen during the live event, but even before the event, people can come here and share things that are top of mind, discuss with one another what they want to hear about from their leaders and what they want their leaders to be addressing. And when that live event starts, it plays right here in line with this conversation. So people can go ahead and watch the event while they're continuing to have this discussion. Executives can follow along in the discussion and respond in real time. And after the event, this recording here is the recording lives on this page as well. So anybody that's missed the event can come back here and continue to participate in the discussion. They can watch the event on demand. They can use the closed captioning as well. And with that, Dan, I'll hand it back to you.
Dan, I am unable to unmute you, so you'll need to unmute.
Thank you, Mark. Let's try that again. So Christina showed you live events, which allow you to broadcast live and on-demand events across the organization and to engage people in real-time discussion with Yammer. If we put together the capabilities of Yammer, Stream, and SharePoint, we can create a curated experience for leaders to express themselves and to guide and inspire the organization. What you're seeing right now is a SharePoint site, also supporting this concept of leadership engagement. On this particular site, I can see what's top of mind for executives. There's big, bold, beautiful images linking me to resources related to our strategic objectives and our culture. A little bit further down, I see effectively a blog, posts from the executive team that leverage a capability called SharePoint News that we'll see again in just a moment. Going down a little bit further, we see the most recent monthly Q&A. This is the same capability that Christina showed you embedded into a website. So we can create a curated experience where people can come and view the most recent meeting alongside resources to other communications that the executives have put out there. Going down a little bit further, on the right, we see a channel of all of the recent leadership meetings. And on the left, we see the Yammer conversation. Now, this conversation is exactly the same conversation from exactly the same group that we saw in Yammer, but we've brought it into a site. So now we have a curated experience where anyone can come and ask questions, engage with leaders within the context of a broader set of content and engaging experiences. So you can see here where we've pulled together capabilities across Microsoft 365, from Yammer to power open conversation, from Stream to power live events and video, and SharePoint to create a curated experience. And in the end, we have one destination that we can send users to that allows them to understand what's top of mind for our executives. So briefly, let's summarize what we've seen as we looked at leadership engagement. First, connect leaders and employees with open and sustained dialogue in Yammer. This is as easy as creating a group in Yammer. Groups are public by default, and getting leaders to begin engaging and asking questions and listening. Second, host live and on-demand events with real-time discussion using our new live events capability that integrates Stream into a Yammer supported experience. And last but not least, empower leaders to communicate their vision and news with an intranet site for leadership. If you get to this point, you can actually pull in those live events and that open and sustained dialogue into one rich digital employee experience for leadership engagement. Organizations around the world have had a great success at using these technologies to drive employee engagement. And this is one of our case studies, Royal Dutch Shell out of the Netherlands, where they use Yammer to empower leaders to amplify their voice, show leadership qualities, and to dialogue with the company at scale. And it's not just about, again, communicating, it's about dialogue. It's about gaining insight into what the organization is thinking about. It's as much a stethoscope as a megaphone. So now let's turn our attention to our second scenario, employee communications. This scenario is easy to wrap your head around. It's about how you, as an individual communicator or as an organization, share news, updates, and stories to the right people across the organization. In the past, this kind of scenario has been supported with email. You've put together an email, sent it to a broad swath of the organization, and hoped that they read it from their inbox. Of course, email is an effective way to manage targeted communications, but email does not create an immersive, engaging communication because you can pretty much support text and images. It doesn't allow you to pull in dynamic data or to create engaging, interactive experiences within the context of the email. Also, many of us know that the organizations have long since turned off the reply all capability to a company-wide email. So there's no real way to engage people in a dialogue around that communication. So let's take a look at how SharePoint News, Stream, and SharePoint communication sites can allow you to transform the way you drive employee communications. Now, just a few minutes ago, on my mobile device, I received a notification that there was a new news article for me to read. What we're looking at right now is SharePoint News, the SharePoint mobile application running on iOS. It gave me a notification and took me right to the news page in SharePoint. And you'll see at the top, there is a new news article published 14 minutes ago about an upcoming quadcopter safety program. I can tap that article and engage with that particular content. It's a rich experience. I see an image, I see information about who published the article, it's richly formatted, I see links to upcoming training events and resources. I also see information about an expert and a video that I can tap on and go straight into watch the product update where the safety program was announced. Going down a little bit further, I see some data, an image gallery, and I've got the ability at the bottom of the screen to interact and engage with the article itself. For example, I can like the article. I can add a comment to it. And in this comment, I can even @mention someone. So I'm going to @mention Naomi. And that person will get an email notification that they've been @mentioned. And then at the very top of the screen, you'll notice there is a little bookmark icon. This allows me to save this article for later. If this is something I want to come back to for reference, or maybe I don't have time to read the entire article right now, I can save it for later. Then, again, from the starting page of the SharePoint mobile application, at the bottom, I can click the Me tab. And the Me tab allows me to go in and look at what content I've saved and get back to that content anytime. So we've seen a rich news experience on mobile. Let's actually elevate this up to the desktop and look at that same article. So I'm going to drop into the same article on the web. And you can see the article has the same content, but it looks quite different. It's responsive, meaning it takes advantage of the device and the real estate that you're using to view the article. On the mobile device, it looks one way. On the desktop, we can see that there's actually multiple columns to put information side by side. But all the functionality is still there, including that social functionality of being able to like and comment on the article. And I can even share it with others. Notice at the top, there's a promote button. This allows me to send this article by email. So for example, I might want to send this to our marketing group. And put in a quick introductory message. So now people in that group will get that article in their inbox. And this really illustrates the fact that news can reach you wherever you are. It can reach you on a mobile device, as we saw at first. It can reach you through email, and it can reach you on your intranet itself. And let's take a look at how that appears. This is a SharePoint site, a modern SharePoint communication site, where we've used news web parts to pull news together into a curated experience. So I, as a user, can come and catch up on news. In fact, there are several news web parts, what you might call widgets, making up this page. The first one is showing me featured news in a carousel that I can scroll through and see the most important news in the organization. The second is a little bit more dense view of news coming from my executive corner, which we saw earlier. This is the exact same news and blog capabilities that we were looking at on the executive corner. Going down a little bit further, there's a set of news here that's personalized for me. So this news is coming to me based on who I am, my audiences, the groups I belong to, where I work, the role I play, how long I've been in the business, and my work patterns. AI from the Microsoft Graph allows the right information to reach me at the right time. So we're seeing here a curated experience of news. Now, all of this allows either an organization, a team, or an individual communicator to really get the right information to the right people at the right time. And I bet you're asking, how easy is it actually to create one of these rich news articles? Let's take a look at the actual creation experience, which is just a couple of clicks. I start with news. I start by clicking new, and I can choose a new news post. And a news post allows me to pick from a set of templates. We have 3 templates that are coming out of the box and a set of templates that my team and organization have made available for me. And these templates allow me to accelerate my productivity. They have sample content already in place, and they allow me to, my organization, to create some consistency in the way articles look and feel, so it doesn't feel like the wild, wild west. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this news spotlight template, and I'm going to create a post. And you'll see that much of my work is already finished. All the placeholders are there, and I can just simply start to fill in the blanks. So for example, if I was creating that quadcopter safety program article, I could put in the article title there, put in a headline, and a tagline. And you can see that I've got controls that allow me to format this with headings, bold, italic, underline, numeric and bold list, to add bulleted lists, to add hyperlinks, and I can go even further and expand very rich formatting of each of these sections of the page, which are called web parts. Now you'll notice as I hover over a web part, there's a set of controls that appear, including the formatting. That I could delete this web part if I wanted to. Or I can modify an existing web part. So for example, on the in the title area here, I want to change the image that's there. Now I can pull in images from my site. I can upload images from my computer. I can search the web for images. But my organization has also made a set of stock images and logos available for me so that I know I'm using sanctioned and licensed images. So I'm going to just drop into my organizational assets and find just the right image. I like this one. I'm going to add it to the page. And then I can even drag the focal point of that to make sure that the right thing is in focus. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the person with the control of the drone is in the focus. That makes the image look right on my web page, but it also means when I look at this on my mobile device, it's going to be the person who's in focus. And I could continue on and fill in the blanks and create my article. And when I'm done, I'm going to click Post News. But before I do that, I have the ability to set metadata or properties on this page that will help me make sure this news article gets to the right people. I click Page Details, and in the Details pane, I can see properties, such as, is this article featured or not? Remember, on the news page, our carousel was showing only featured articles. If I want this article to show up on the carousel, I can choose yes. I can also choose categories. For example, this is an employee highlight. And I can target this to specific users or groups in my organization. So I'm going to go ahead and ensure that this gets to my product launch marketing members. And when I'm all done, I'm going to click Post News. And if my organization had implemented approval, there would be one more step where appropriate people would be able to approve that new article. So you can see it's just a couple of clicks to create a rich news article that can incorporate content from including text, images, even video, and dynamic content from across Office 365. Now, one more tip, I've got the ability to share news from share any content as news with what's called a news link. A news link is simply pointing to another piece of content, and Christina will show you how this can be used for Microsoft Stream. When you share a link, you publish that content as news, and this is also really great for sharing external news. Let's say there was an article about our company in the Wall Street Journal. I could take that link, publish it here in SharePoint News, and it would appear in news experiences on the web, on mobile, and even sent out through email. So with SharePoint News, you can really transform the way individuals, teams, and organizations communicate by empowering anyone to create rich content and distributing that content to the right people at the right time. Now, text content is great, but video is even better. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Christina.
Great, thanks, Dan. So as Dan mentioned, sometimes when text won't do, you need to use video. And here I am in my Stream portal where all of my videos live, and I can see that there's been some new training posted. So with this new training, I want to go ahead and I want the rest of the company to know that this is now available. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump into my training channel. And here I'm going to see there's a few new videos. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these. So this one looks really interesting. I'm going to go ahead and share this out to my organization. And the way that I communicate with my organization across all of our employee base is with Yammer. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click that I want to share this on Yammer. And so directly here from Stream, I'm going to go ahead and let's make an announcement. So I'm going to add this to our company announcements and let everyone know that new training is available. I'm going to post that. So after my message has been posted, that means that I can jump over here to my Yammer channel where all of my announcements get posted. And there I can see my training right in line. And so now the entire organization can go back to Stream to watch the whole library, or if they want to get started here right in Yammer, they can. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to
Hi there. Welcome to
hit play on this video. And from here, I can turn on my closed captions and follow along if I am not going to listen. And I can also leverage some of Stream's AI capabilities to do a deep search in this video that helps to unlock that content and make this easy to navigate just like a document. So here, I'm going to go ahead and search for the word Teams. And that's going to bring up all of the places where Teams is mentioned in this video. And by clicking on these timestamps, I'm dropped exactly to that place. So not only can I use my closed captions, I can also navigate this content all here right inside Yammer. And with that, Dan, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thanks, Christina. So the third and final tip we're going to give you for driving and transforming your employee communications is to use SharePoint communication sites. Rich, powerful websites that anyone can create to reach and communicate with a broad audience across the organization. Let me show you a couple of examples of communication sites, and then we'll see just how easy they are to create. The first example I'm going to show you is a website to publicize an upcoming training event. You can see here on the page for drone product training, we've got big, giant, bold images to communicate messages and to link people to important resources. Going down, we've got an overview of the upcoming training event. And again, links to key functionality, including an agenda, directions, contact information, and even a link to where you can register for the event, which uses Microsoft Forms to capture registration data. Going down a little further, I see who the speakers are at the event. And this particular set of capability is what we call a people web part, where not only does it show me the person's name and a quick description of the role they're going to play in this training, but it also lets me hover over them and learn more about them. I can learn more about their how to contact them and reach out to them directly. I can see files that they have access to that I also have access to. I can even see organizational relationships. In this case, Patty Fernandez is the president of the organization, so she's at the top of our org chart. Going down a little further, big giant bold links to the agenda, some information about featured workshops, our directions, and that Microsoft form for registration, all linked from the very top of the page. So this is an example of a communication site. It took only a few minutes to create, and let's see how we can do that in SharePoint within Microsoft 365. By clicking SharePoint in the suite bar or in the waffle, I can go to what we call SharePoint Home. And SharePoint Home is a site where I can see content coming to me from across the organization, including another place where I can catch up on news from across the organization and my sites. Right above the news, I can click Create Site. Create Site lets me choose to create a communication site. And the key capability, the key feature of a communication site is that you can make it broadly available across the organization to communicate to a broad audience. When I choose to create a communication site, I can pick from a design. Now, there are 3 designs that come out of the box. Topic, which is very information dense. Showcase, which is more visual and meant to showcase a small number of concepts, thoughts, or products. Or I can even start with a blank page and build up from scratch. Going down a little bit further, you can see that my organization has created a number of designs that I can use to get closer to my final project. So these designs are effectively types of templates that I can use to create a site. Now I'm going to go ahead and start with a topic design, and I'm going to go ahead and call this site training event. And I have the ability to pick classification. This is something that my organization can customize to help people understand the type of information that's allowed to be shared on a site. And I click finish, and in just a few seconds, before I can even get a cup of coffee and come back to my desk, I'm going to have a communication site ready for me to customize for my training event. So we'll let this create the site. Just a few more seconds. And you'll see that I have a site with placeholder content. I'll click edit to start editing the site. And just like we saw in news, I can hover over web parts and modify them. I can add placeholder content. Now, there's a couple of things we didn't show in news, which is how to add things that aren't there. And that's by clicking the plus. If I click the plus, I have the ability to add to any page a set of web parts that can pull content in from across Office 365 and beyond. So for example, I might choose to pull in a video from Microsoft Stream, which I can find by browsing or by searching. That web part now sits in place, and I can configure it and point to the video. I might also choose to add an image. So I'm going to go ahead and pick an image. And just like we saw before, I've got the ability to pull in recent images or images from my organization, or pull in images from my computer. So I'm going to go ahead and pull in one from my computer here. And finally, I've got the ability to lay out this page to really create the exact immersive experience I want. SharePoint pages have sections. You'll see the section right now over here on the far left of my screen. These are the controls for this section. And I can choose to make this section as one of several layouts. I'm going to go ahead and choose to make it a 2-column section, for example. Then everything resizes automatically. My web parts resize, and I can drag and drop web parts. So I can take that video and move it next to the image. And I can go on and further lay out other parts of my environment. And I can even add sections that aren't there. So I might choose to add a section that is a single column section, where I might choose to put in another web part, perhaps even some text. Go ahead and format it. And we just are introducing some new capabilities to even further help you format your sections, which include section backgrounds. So I can make this section pop by choosing a background. And you'll notice the text changed color automatically from black to white to ensure that my site remains accessible. So with just a few clicks, I can use the same concepts that I used in creating a news article to create an entire site. I can publish it and then share that site with my organization by going into the permissions of the site and choosing to share it with whoever should have access to the site. In this case, I want everyone in the organization to have access to the site, so I'll choose everyone. I'll send them a quick message about the site, email, and now my site is ready for my audience. So with just a few clicks, we've created a SharePoint communication site, a rich, immersive employee experience to further transform employee communications. So to quickly review what we talked about in employee communications, we saw that employee communications allow you to transform the way you keep people up to date and informed with SharePoint News, to use video to communicate and to share, and to empower any communicator to create beautiful intranet sites and pages with SharePoint. Third bucket of employee communications that employee engagement communications that we're going to look at. The third initiative is open sharing, learning, and innovation that allows you to bring people together to share and develop knowledge, to connect to expertise, ask questions, get answers, provide feedback, and ideate. This is, in my opinion, one of the most valuable forms of employee engagement and communication, because this puts connection and knowledge sharing in the hands of the employees themselves. And it's amazing what organizations have done by breaking down barriers, by busting silos and bureaucracy, and enabling people to connect directly with each other. Let's take a look at one example of how you can use these technologies to drive open sharing, learning, and communication. A few minutes ago, we started creating a SharePoint site for training. Let's see what that site might look like a little bit later. This site has been developed a little bit more, and this is a training site specifically for Office 365. This allows users to come and learn how to use the technology with rich content surfaced through navigation, through beautiful, rich images. And as I scroll down the page, it's not just about web types of content, but also video. Here on the right, we see a stream web part with a featured video, and we see a channel of all of our learning videos. On the left, we're bringing in Yammer conversations to let people talk to each other, to ask questions, to share tips. And we can see that people have been sharing things such as this great interactive infographic that was produced by one of our community members. So people are able to come together and get content that's coming from the organization, as well as connect with each other and share best practices. This is what I would call a learning hub, which is one great way to use SharePoint, Yammer, and Microsoft Stream to drive open sharing, learning, and innovation. Another example is to create communities of practice where people can come together to share knowledge about any topic. We have, for example, earlier talked about Royal Dutch Shell, where they use Yammer to connect people across the globe who share knowledge about geology, equipment, and other areas of expertise, so that they aren't reinventing wheels that have been already addressed in some other part of the organization. Finally, using these technologies is a great way to gather feedback and crowdsource ideas. We see customers doing this by pulling people together in Yammer and simply asking, what do you think? Asking the right question gets people to start a dialogue with leaders or with stakeholders to submit their ideas, to provide feedback about new initiatives or new products. And those ideas can then be used to move the organization back further, faster. We have one customer that saved tens of millions of dollars by implementing Yammer communities and asking people how they could improve quality and safety in their organization. So these types of initiatives go straight to the bottom line of an organization. This quote from Wipro demonstrates the kind of value you can get out of bringing people together. Wipro uses Yammer to connect people across geographies, time zones, and organizational silos to share knowledge. As a knowledge business, they find that by accelerating the velocity of knowledge across teams, they actually are able to sharpen their competitive edge and win more business. Again, employee engagement and communications is about the bottom line. Last but not least, let's look at initiatives involving participation and inclusion. Participation and inclusion is about making people feel part of something greater, part of the shared objectives, part of the mission and the vision of the organization, and feeling like they have something to contribute. This starts with leadership engagement, which we talked about earlier, and allowing leaders to set that vision and ask people to contribute. And this is certainly one of the things that has helped Microsoft transform. But across the globe, this type of initiative is increasingly important, particularly as millennials, as younger generations enter the workforce and want to feel something, want to be a part of something greater than themselves. In fact, research shows that a significant portion of millennials would rather take a job with lower pay that makes them feel part of the mission than a job with higher pay. So let's take a look at some of the things you can do to drive participation and inclusion in your organization. And in this case, we've already seen how the technologies come together. I'm just going to point you to some ideas for what you can do in your organization. The first is to create communities based on shared interests and affiliations. Using Yammer, which we saw earlier, you can create groups that allow people to connect based on things like, for example, their region, their hobbies, or even their category of diversity within your organization. Here at Microsoft, we have groups for women at Microsoft. We have groups for the gay and lesbian community and transgender community. We have groups for all types of shared interests and affiliations. In fact, one of our more popular communities is for travel. At Microsoft, we have lots of people who love to travel, and our Microsoft Travel community is where people share tips about restaurants and hotels, how to work with mileage programs and status programs, and how to get the most bang for the buck for their travel dollars. Second, praise employee contributions and achievements and recognize personal milestones. Jumping back to Yammer for a moment, Yammer has a powerful capability to praise employees. And praise, as simple as it sounds, makes a big difference in making people feel recognized and part of the mission. So here in my Executive Corner community, I can choose to praise an employee, for example, and I can choose to praise with a variety of icons. I can choose who I want to praise. So let's say I want to praise Miriam for the new safety program. Great new launch of the safety program. Incident reporting was 20% more accurate after just 3 months. By the way, that's a type of statistic we've actually seen at one of our customers. They implemented a safety program and their incident reporting was 28% more accurate. And by praising employees in the open and letting other people glom on with their congratulations, that creates a culture where people feel and know that they're part of the shared mission of the organization. And last but not least, use these technologies to drive cultural and behavioral change and to foster shared purpose. One of the toughest parts about digital transformation is helping people understand where they're going. And there are many times when organizations need to transform. They need to transform when they're implementing new technologies like a digital workplace. And we saw how the custom office training center could bring people together to participate in that journey. We also have customers who transform because their organizations are being acquired or merged into other organizations. There's a leadership change, and the leadership needs to set a new direction and heartbeat for the organization. And using technologies like Yammer, let people come together to understand what the change is and how to adapt to that change. I'd like to close this section with a quote from TDS, which used Yammer to help their employees feel like they had a sense of community. Even this outcome, which sounds very touchy-feely, again drives to the bottom line. As you can see from the last phrase of this quote, it improved the health and morale of the organization and therefore improved retention. Straight to the bottom line. So we've looked across 4 initiatives related to employee engagement and communications. Leadership engagement, allowing leaders to engage directly with employees in a two-way dialogue on a day-to-day basis in a leadership community, and moving the needle forward quickly with live and on-demand events, all pulled together in a curated experience for leaders on the intranet. We looked at employee communications using SharePoint news, video, and communication sites to tell rich, compelling stories to reach a broad audience across the organization. We looked at how to pull people, content, and conversation together to drive open learning, sharing, and innovation. And finally, we talked about how these technologies can be used to create a culture of participation and inclusion. These technologies are extremely valuable to customers across the globe. In the deck, we've shared a couple of quotes, and we finished the last section with a quote from TDS, but TDS also used Yammer and our other technologies for the most broad scope of employee engagement. They used it to connect leaders with employees all the way down to the first line. They used it to help new employees onboard quickly, to create a sense of inclusion with interest groups for photography enthusiasts and for veterans in the organization. And all of these things drove its real business impact. So with that, I'd like to wrap up the demonstration portion with a call to join us at the SharePoint conference, May 21st to 23rd in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand. This is going to be the biggest event for collaboration and communication and teamwork that we've ever held. We're expecting thousands of people, including hundreds of experts from Microsoft and across the industry, coming together to deliver hundreds of sessions, dozens of workshops to help you learn and grow and deliver success for your organization. But more than content, it's about connecting with others, about engaging, in fact, with your peers and with experts to get your questions answered and to share the best practices you've discovered along the way. So please join us in Vegas, May 21st to 23rd. We look forward to seeing you there. And I'd like to also give one more shout out of thanks to our sponsors today, Harmony. I'm going to leave this slide up for a moment as well while we begin to answer questions. And this slide, by the way, to give a shout out and a thanks to Richard. Harmony is running SharePoint summits in a dozen cities worldwide. Join them and learn more about how you can drive adoption of Office and SharePoint. So with that, let's turn to Q&A.
Great. We have a couple questions that have come in here, Dan. I can pitch them to you.
Great.
And one thing, Christina, just before we close out, Richard, if you had any final thoughts about the summit, and then we'll go to Q&A.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dan, and thanks, Christina, for your presentations. So we're really looking forward to meeting everyone at the SharePoint conference, as Dan was just saying, and also obviously the 12 SharePoint Summit conferences that we're running across the globe in 12 different cities throughout the year. So please feel free to register for those on our website under the events section at harman.ie. And we'll be more than welcome to meet you at those events, which we're running with Microsoft at Microsoft venues.
Great, thank you, Richard. Yes, and please, yes, let's attend these sessions. So a couple questions. The first one that came in is, when will Yammer get e-discovery, legal hold, and expiration policies?
That's a great question. And we have, at Ignite, we indicated that those capabilities would be coming in calendar year 2019. So we're partway into that year right now. And I expect that at the SharePoint Summit, May 21st to 23rd in Las Vegas, we might have something to share with you. So I look forward to sharing our next steps for compliance and security in Yammer at the SharePoint conference.
Great. Next question. What would you suggest as features to use to track employee progress on mandatory training content using the learning hubs?
Awesome, great question. One of the great capabilities of SharePoint, which I didn't show, but I'll actually pop up as a demo so you can see it really quickly here. Go back to this tenant and into our article, is that there are analytics at several levels across SharePoint, Yammer, Stream, and Microsoft 365. The first and easiest to show you is that on a page, you've got the ability to see how many people have viewed, and you can actually drill in as an administrator and see who has viewed any particular piece of content. Those kinds of analytics also roll up to the site level. So I've got the ability to drop in and look at my site usage and see what pages are being viewed, which ones are trending, etc. The data that is driving these analytics is part of Microsoft 365 and can be tapped into through the administrative centers and through APIs. So you can actually pull the information about who has viewed and looked at content. We don't have a feature out of the box that lets you let's say, tick a box when Dan looks at a specific piece of content and surface that to a training manager. We don't have an out-of-box learning management system capability at this point, but we do have some wonderful partners in our ecosystem that support those capabilities. So if you search for learning management and Office 365, you'll find some of those partners.
Great, thanks, Dan. Next question that came in, will Yammer ever have a message timed release capability?
Good question. So I think the core of that question is, can you schedule posting to Yammer? Out of the box, Yammer is currently designed to allow people to engage in real time and in two ways. We are looking at other scenarios that will get closer to that. But I would point out to you that even today, you can use Microsoft Flow to schedule things. So you could easily put a post somewhere. It really doesn't matter where, but let's say a SharePoint list, and use Microsoft Flow to schedule the posting of that to Yammer. I'll also tell you that one of the things I see customers do a lot to push communications through Yammer is email. One of my favorite features of Yammer is that every group has an email address. If you go to the bottom right panel of a group, you'll see that email address. And with that email address, you can do anything to a group that you can do with email, including scheduling messages, pushing a message to multiple groups. Email is a wonderful intermediary to allow you to build solutions that end up driving communications into Yammer.
Great. Okay, thanks for that. Next question is for Richard. So for somebody that's new to Harmony, do you have any tips and tricks or maybe best practices on how to get started?
Yeah, absolutely. Harmony is mainly a client-side application to integrate into, for example, Outlook. And it's typically deployed centrally using standard desktop management tools like Software Center and things. And getting started is something that we're heavily focusing on at the moment to make it as easy as possible for the end user to actually connect automatically to the sites, for example, that they have access to in their Office 365 tenant, for example, as well as the teams that they're members of and their OneDrive, all in one single interface, and resolve those and add those automatically for them. So we're actually taking the users through like a guided wizard approach of getting started with the product and the functionality.
Okay, great.
And I'd actually love to give a quick shout out to the kind of value that Harmony plays in helping customers transform digitally, because one of the challenges with any transformation is getting people from where they are to where you want them to be. And today, so much communication and collaboration happens in email, happens in your inbox. Users live in Outlook. And so to have a partner that connects Outlook to our broader set of capabilities in Office 365, including SharePoint sites and the graph, is a wonderful value add for customers trying to make that journey.
Great, thank you. So I've got a couple questions about, is this being recorded? And yes, it is being recorded, and we can share out the recording and presentation after the event happens today. And with that, Dan and Richard, any kind of last thoughts, closing thoughts that we have here in the last few minutes?
Richard?
I mean, like you say, I think, getting people to use the platforms that the companies are investing in, whether it's Teams, Yammer, SharePoint, etc., is really where I think, all of us here today have a heavy focus on, because that's where you get the value from, the tools that you're putting in place and the platforms that you're putting in place. So, yeah, improving user adoption and making things as easy as possible for end users to get to the tools that they need in order to get their job done in the best possible way, whether it's, as I say, Yammer, Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, or whatever, is really, really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'm looking for, I thought we had a slide for this. Let me, yes, here we go. I would like to close with an offer. We are excited to join Harmony at the SharePoint conference in Vegas in May. And we actually have the ability to give away a free pass to SPC. All you have to do is go to the URL listed here and register. We will be giving away a pass randomly. So please do take this opportunity to go and register. We want to thank you for attending this workshop today. As Christina mentioned, the recording will be available. So if you want to share this with your colleagues, it will be available for you very shortly at the same URL that you used to join the webinar in the first place. So thank you so much to Richard, to Christina, to Brad. Thank you for hanging on there, Brad. And we will look forward to seeing you at the next webinar in the Road to SharePoint. Thank you so much.